David Park stood at the window of his quarters and looked out at the stars. The space station called Cora Prime floated in the darkness like a giant metal flower. Lights from 1,000 windows glowed against the black sky. Ships moved slowly around the station, coming and going from worlds he had never seen. He was Earth's first permanent ambassador to the Galactic Council. 50 years ago, humans had discovered they were not alone in the universe. 50 years of learning, talking, and trying to find their place among species who had ruled the stars for thousands of years. Now David was here to ask for more. More trade, more colonies, more respect. His door opened and Lisa Cho walked in. She was his chief aide, a small woman with sharp eyes and a quick mind. She carried a tablet in her hands, and her face looked worried. "The council meeting is in 1 hour," she said. "But something feels wrong, Ambassador." David turned from the window. "What do you mean?" "I have been monitoring their communications. There was a secret meeting yesterday. All council members attended. We were not invited. We were not even told." David felt a cold feeling in his stomach, but he kept his face calm. He had been a soldier before he became a diplomat. He knew how to hide his fear. "Perhaps it was nothing," he said. "Perhaps they were discussing matters that do not concern Earth." Lisa shook her head. "I do not think so. The Valorian High Counselor, Draven, has been speaking against us for months. He calls humans dangerous. He says we grow too fast. He says we must be stopped before we become too strong." David walked to his desk and picked up a folder. Inside were his notes for today's speech. Words about friendship. Words about cooperation. Words about a future where humans and aliens work together as equals. "We will proceed as planned," he said. "We came here in peace. We will speak of peace. If they choose to be our enemies, that is their decision. But we will not be the ones who start a war." 1 hour later, David Park walked into the Great Hall of the Galactic Council. The room was enormous. The ceiling rose so high it disappeared into shadow. Seats for hundreds of alien representatives filled the space in a great circle. At the center was a platform where speakers stood to address the council. David walked to the platform alone. Lisa watched from the human delegation's small section, far from the center where the powerful species sat. High Counselor Draven sat in the highest seat. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and eyes like black stones. He had lived for over 800 years. To him, humans were like children who had just learned to walk. Dangerous children who might break things. David began his speech. He spoke of Earth's desire for friendship. He spoke of trade that would benefit all species. He spoke of human colonies in the empty outer rim, far from anyone else's territory. His voice was calm and warm. He smiled as he talked about a future of peace. When he finished, silence filled the great hall. Then Draven stood. His voice was cold and hard. "The council has already made its decision," he said. "We did not need to hear your words, human. We have watched your species for 50 years. We have seen enough." David felt his heart beat faster. "High Counselor, I do not understand. We come as friends. We ask only for fair treatment." "You ask for power," Draven said. "Your species breeds like insects. Your technology advances faster than any we have seen. In 50 years, you have gone from primitive rockets to warships that rival our own. In another 50 years, you would challenge us for control of the galaxy." "We do not want control," David said. "We want partnership." Draven made a sound like bitter laughter. "All dangerous species say such things. The Council has decided. Humanity must be contained. Your colonies will be limited. Your fleet will be reduced. Your expansion will end. And you, Ambassador Park, will return to Earth with this message." David stood very still. "And if we refuse, then we will make you accept." David looked around the great hall. Every alien face watched him with cold eyes. There was no friendship here. There was no hope for peace. There was only fear. And fear had made them cruel. "I see," David said quietly. "Then I have nothing more to say. I will return to Earth and deliver your message. But I warn you, High Counselor, humanity does not respond well to threats. We did not survive our own history by being weak. If you push us, we will push back." He turned to leave the platform. "Stop him," Draven said. Guards in silver armor appeared from the shadows. They surrounded David before he could move. Lisa jumped to her feet in the human section, but other guards blocked her path. "David Park," Draven announced, his voice echoing through the hall. "You are charged with espionage against the Galactic Council. You have stolen military secrets. You have plotted against Council security. The punishment is death." David's face went pale. "These charges are lies. I have done nothing wrong." "The Council does not require proof," Draven said. "We require only agreement. And we all agree that humanity is too dangerous to be allowed a voice in this hall." A guard raised his weapon. It glowed with blue light. David looked across the hall at Lisa. Their eyes met. In that moment, he knew he would die. But he also knew that his death would mean something. Earth would learn what happened here. Earth would respond. "Lisa," he called out, his voice steady. Tell them everything." The weapon fired. Blue light struck David Park in the chest. He fell without a sound. His body lay still on the platform where he had spoken of peace. Lisa screamed. She fought against the guards. But she was small and they were strong. Then she remembered her training. Her hand found the emergency beacon on her belt. She pressed it. In the chaos, no one noticed the tiny device sending a signal. The signal flew through space at the speed of light. It carried a message. And attached to that message was a video. The video showed everything. The lies. The false charges. The murder. The signal reached Earth 14 hours later. President Michael Santos sat in his office and watched Ambassador David Park die. He watched it 3 times. His face showed no emotion. His hands did not shake. But inside, something cold and hard was growing. He opened his computer and found a file. The file was locked with codes that only 3 people in the universe knew. He entered the codes slowly, one by one. The file was called Contingency Omega. Inside was a single document. The document was called Order 66. President Santos read it carefully. Then he picked up his phone and called Admiral James Wright. "Admiral," he said, "activate all hidden fleets. Contact all deep space installations. We are now at war." "Sir," the Admiral replied. "What are our orders?" President Santos looked once more at the image of David Park lying dead on an alien floor. "Order 66, he said. "Execute Order 66. They killed our ambassador. Now, we kill their empire." He ended the call and sat alone in the darkness. The galaxy did not know it yet, but everything had just changed. A sleeping giant had opened its eyes, and it was very, very angry. The Council fleet gathered near Earth like wolves around a wounded deer. 3,000 warships from 12 different species formed a wall of metal and fire. They believed they were strong. They believed humans were weak. They believed this war would be over in days. High Counselor Draven watched from his flagship as the fleet moved into position. His officers reported that Earth had only 500 ships. Old ships. Small ships. Nothing that could stand against the combined power of the Galactic Council. "They are primitives," Draven told his commanders. "They have been in space for only 200 years. We have ruled these stars for 10,000 years. This will not be a war. This will be a lesson." Far away, in the cold darkness between stars, Admiral James Wright stood on the bridge of a ship that did not officially exist. The ship was called the Hammer of Earth. It was 3 kilometers long and carried enough weapons to destroy a moon. And it was not alone. Around the Hammer of Earth, hidden in the shadows of dead planets and empty space, 10,000 warships waited in silence. For 50 years, they had been built in secret. For 50 years, they had trained in places no alien eye had ever seen. For 50 years, humanity had played the role of the weak newcomer, while preparing for a day they hoped would never come. That day had come. Admiral Wright was a tall man with gray hair and eyes like winter ice. He had spent 40 years in the military. He had fought in wars on Earth before humans ever reached the stars. He knew what war meant. He knew the cost of blood and fire. But he also knew that some things were worth fighting for. "Admiral," his communications officer said, "we have received confirmation from all 12 hidden bases. All fleets are ready. All weapons are armed. We are waiting for your order." Wright nodded slowly. He looked at the main screen, where a picture of David Park was displayed. David had been his friend. They had served together long ago, before David became a diplomat and Wright became an admiral. Now David was dead, murdered by aliens who thought humans were too weak to fight back. They were wrong. "Open a channel to all ships," Wright said. His voice went out to 10,000 vessels scattered across the galaxy. Millions of soldiers, pilots, and crew members stopped what they were doing and listened. "This is Admiral Wright. 50 years ago, we joined the galactic community. We came in peace. We offered friendship. We asked for nothing but a chance to live among the stars. And how did they respond? They called us primitives. They called us dangerous. They murdered our ambassador while he spoke of peace." He paused. His hands gripped the railing in front of him. "For 50 years, we prepared for this moment. We hoped it would never come. We built these ships and trained these soldiers praying we would never need them. But we always knew the truth. We knew that the galaxy would not accept us. We knew that one day, we would have to fight for our right to exist." His voice grew harder. "That day is today. Order 66 is now active. Every council species, every military target, every center of power. We strike them all at once. We give them no time to respond. We show them no mercy, because they showed David Park none. When this is over, the galaxy will never threaten Earth again, because there will be no one left strong enough to try." He stood straight and spoke the words that would change history. "All fleets, execute Order 66. For Earth, for humanity, for David Park." Across the galaxy, human ships appeared from nowhere. They jumped out of hidden spaces and emerged near targets that had never expected an attack. The Council had always believed humans were weak. They had never imagined that the weak newcomers had been watching them for 50 years, learning their weaknesses, mapping their defenses, and building a force that could crush them all. On Earth, President Michael Santos stood before cameras and spoke to 8 billion people. "My fellow humans," he said, "you have all seen the video. You know what the Council did to our ambassador. You know what they planned to do to us. They called us primitives. They said we must be contained. They murdered David Park to send us a message." His eyes were hard. "Now we send a message back. As I speak, our fleets are attacking Council positions across the galaxy. This is not a limited strike. This is not a warning. This is total war. We will not stop until every power that voted for David's death has surrendered or been destroyed." He leaned forward. "The Council believed they could kill our people and face no consequences. They believed we were too weak to fight back. They were wrong. Humanity has never been weak. We have simply been patient. We have been watching. We have been preparing. And now, we are ready." Lisa Cho arrived on Earth as the war began. Her ship landed at a military base, where officers were running in every direction. Screens showed images of space battles already starting across the galaxy. Human ships were attacking Valorian stations. Human missiles were destroying supply lines. Human soldiers were preparing to invade Council worlds. She was taken directly to President Santos. "Miss Cho," he said, "I am sorry about Ambassador Park. He was a good man." Lisa's eyes were red from crying, but her voice was steady. "He was the best man I ever knew. He truly believed in peace. He thought he could change their minds. He was wrong," Santos said gently. "But his death will not be meaningless. Tell me everything you know about Council defenses. Every secret you learned on Cora Prime. Help us end this war as quickly as possible." Lisa nodded. She had spent years working with David to build peace. Now she would use everything she knew to help destroy the ones who had killed him. Far from Earth, the Council fleet near human space suddenly received terrible news. Their homeworlds were under attack. Their supply stations were burning. Their reinforcements were being destroyed before they could launch. High Counselor Draven stared at the reports with disbelief. "This is impossible," he said. "Where did these ships come from?" "Our intelligence said humans had only 500 vessels." "Our intelligence was wrong," his officer said quietly. "We are receiving reports of human ships attacking targets across the entire galaxy. Thousands of ships, perhaps tens of thousands. We are being attacked everywhere at once." Draven felt something he had not felt in 800 years. He felt fear. "How?" he whispered. "How did they hide this from us?" The answer was simple. Humans had learned from history. They had studied every war ever fought, on Earth and in space. They knew that the best weapon was the one your enemy did not know about. They knew that patience was more powerful than strength. They knew that the weak who appear harmless are the most dangerous of all. For 50 years, humanity had seemed small and harmless. For 50 years, they had smiled and asked for friendship while building the largest military force the galaxy had ever seen. For 50 years, they had waited. Now the waiting was over. Captain Hannah Lee stood on the bridge of the ESS Vengeance as her ship led 100 others toward the Valorian homeworld. She was young for a captain, only 35 years old, but she had trained her whole life for this moment. "All ships," she said, "target their orbital defenses. We break through their shields, then we own their sky. Make it quick. Make it clean. And remember why we are here." On her chest, she wore a small pin. It was a picture of David Park. Every human soldier in the fleet wore the same pin. Every ship carried his image. Every attack was made in his name. He had come in peace, and they had killed him for it. Now 8 billion humans were making sure the galaxy would never forget that mistake. The Vengeance fired its main weapons. Blue fire streaked across space and struck the Valorian defense station. The station exploded in a ball of light. The war for the galaxy had begun, and humanity was winning. The galaxy burned. On 50 worlds, human ships appeared from the darkness and rained fire on Council defenses. Space stations exploded like dying stars. Fleets that had never known defeat were torn apart in hours. Species that had ruled the stars for thousands of years watched in horror as their empires crumbled. Captain Hannah Lee led her fleet toward the Valorian homeworld. The planet was beautiful from space, covered in blue oceans and green forests. For 10,000 years, the Valorians had been the most powerful species in the galaxy. They had built the council. They had made the laws. They had decided which species would rise and which would fall. Now they would pay for deciding that humanity should fall. "Captain," her tactical officer said, "their orbital defenses are collapsing. We have destroyed 60% of their stations. Their fleet is retreating to protect the capital city." Hannah nodded. "Good. Tell all ships to focus fire on their remaining defenses. I want their sky clear within 3 hours." She looked at the picture of David Park on her command screen. She had never met him, but she knew his story. Everyone in the fleet knew his story. He had gone to the council with open hands and an open heart. He had offered peace, and they had shot him like a criminal while the whole galaxy watched. Hannah had been a soldier for 15 years. She had trained for war but hoped for peace. When she heard what happened to Ambassador Park, something inside her changed. Peace was no longer possible. The council had made their choice. Now humanity would make them regret it. In another part of the galaxy, Lieutenant Kevin Park flew his fighter through a storm of enemy fire. His squadron was attacking the council citadel on Cora Prime, the same station where his brother David had been murdered. Kevin was younger than David by 10 years. Growing up, he had worshipped his older brother. David was always the smart one, the calm one, the one who believed that words could solve any problem. Kevin was different. He was quick to anger, quick to fight, quick to act. When he heard that David was dead, he did not cry. He did not speak. He simply walked to his fighter and waited for orders. Now he had those orders. "All fighters," he said into his radio. "Target the shield generators on the station's lower section. Once those shields are down, the ground forces can move in. Copy that, Lieutenant, his wingman replied. What about enemy fighters? Kevin looked at his scanner. Dozens of alien fighters were moving to intercept them. They were fast and well-armed. In any normal battle, they would be dangerous. But this was not a normal battle. Human pilots had trained for years in secret, learning to fly in ways no alien had ever seen. They had studied every ship the Council used. They knew every weakness, every blind spot, every trick. Leave the enemy fighters to me, Kevin said. Just focus on those generators. He pushed his ship forward and flew directly toward the enemy formation. His weapons fired in rapid bursts, each shot finding its target. Alien fighters exploded around him. He moved through them like water through stones, untouchable, unstoppable. In his mind, he saw his brother's face. He saw David standing on that platform, speaking of peace. He saw the blue light that ended David's life, and with every enemy he destroyed, he felt a little of his rage slip away. Not enough, not nearly enough, but it was a start. Back at Earth Command, Commander Sarah Wells coordinated the entire war from a room filled with screens and computers. She had not slept in 3 days. Coffee cups surrounded her station like a small fortress. Her eyes were red, but her mind was sharp. Admiral Wright, she said into her communicator. The Valorian homeworld defenses are at 20%. Captain Lee requests permission to begin the ground assault. Permission granted, Wright's voice replied. Tell her to secure the capital first. I want High Counselor Draven alive. He has crimes to answer for. Sarah made the call, then turned to the next crisis. A council fleet was trying to escape through the outer systems. She ordered 3 human squadrons to intercept. Another council species was attempting to surrender. She sent diplomats to accept their terms, along with a fleet, to make sure they kept their promises. This was the true power of Order 66. It was not just a military plan. It was a complete system for breaking enemy resistance, while humanity was prepared to deal with every possible response. Surrender? Accepted, but verified. Resistance? Crushed immediately. Escape? Impossible. The Council had spent 10,000 years building their power. Humanity had spent 50 years studying how to tear it down, and they had learned their lessons well. On the Valorian homeworld, ground forces landed in the capital city. Human soldiers in powered armor marched through streets that had never seen war. The Valorians had no army to speak of. They had relied on other species to fight for them. Now those other species were either defeated or fighting for their own survival. The Valorians could only watch as humans took control of their world. Captain Lee landed her shuttle near the main government building. She stepped out and looked up at the tall towers that had ruled the galaxy for so long. Soon, those towers would belong to Earth. She opened a channel that broadcast to the entire planet. People of Valoria, she said. My name is Captain Hannah Lee, of the Earth Space Navy. Your government murdered our ambassador. Your council declared war on humanity. Now you face the consequences. She paused. We are not here to destroy you. We are here to make sure you never threaten us again. Surrender peacefully, and you will be treated fairly. Resist, and you will be destroyed. The choice is yours. But choose quickly. My patience is not unlimited. Within an hour, the Valorian government surrendered. High Counselor Draven was captured trying to escape in a private ship. He was brought before Captain Lee in chains. You cannot do this, he said, his voice shaking with anger and fear. We are the Valorians. We have ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years. You are nothing but primitives. Hannah looked at him with cold eyes. We are the primitives who just conquered your empire in 3 months. We are the primitives whose ambassador you murdered. We are the primitives who are going to make sure you spend the rest of your life remembering what your arrogance cost you. She turned to her soldiers. Take him to the prison ship. President Santos wants him alive for trial. As they dragged Draven away, Kevin Park landed his fighter nearby. He walked across the landing field to where Captain Lee stood. Is it true? He asked. We have won? Hannah nodded. The major council powers have surrendered or been destroyed. Some smaller groups are still fighting, but they cannot win. The war is effectively over. Kevin looked at the alien city around him. He thought about David, who had dreamed of humans and aliens living in peace. That dream was dead now, killed by the same people who had killed David, but maybe something new could rise from the ashes. Maybe humanity could build a better galaxy. One where ambassadors were not murdered for speaking of friendship. What happens now? Kevin asked. Captain Lee looked up at the sky, where human ships orbited like protective guardians. Now we rebuild, she said. But first, we make sure this never happens again. Every species that voted for your brother's death will face justice. Every leader who thought they could kill humans without consequence will learn the truth. She put a hand on Kevin's shoulder. Your brother died trying to build peace. We will honor his memory by making sure the peace we build cannot be broken. Never again will anyone look at humanity and see easy victims. Never again. Kevin nodded slowly. The rage was still inside him, but it was quieter now. The war was won. But the work of making David's death mean something had only just begun. 3 months after the war began, President Michael Santos walked through the ruins of the Council Citadel on Cora Prime. The great hall where David Park had died was empty now. Broken glass covered the floor. Scorch marks from weapons fire stained the walls. The high seats where alien leaders had once judged the galaxy were shattered and burned. Santos was an old man, nearly 70 years old. His hair was white, and his face was lined with years of worry. He had been a teacher before he entered politics. He had studied history, philosophy, and the art of leadership. He had never wanted to be a war president. But fate had made the choice for him. He stopped at the center of the hall, at the exact spot where David Park had fallen. Someone had placed a small marker there. A simple stone with David's name carved into it. Santos knelt and touched the stone with gentle fingers. I am sorry, old friend, he whispered. You deserved better. You came here with hope in your heart, and they killed you for it. I wish there had been another way. But there had been no other way. Santos understood that now. The Council had feared humanity too much to let them live in peace. They had seen humans growing stronger every year. And they had decided to act before it was too late. David's death was not a mistake. It was a message. The message had been received, and the response had been devastating. 200 billion lives lost across Council space. Entire worlds in ruins. Species that had ruled the stars now begged for mercy. The cost of the Council's arrogance was beyond counting, and humanity had paid a price too. 2 million soldiers dead, families destroyed, children who would grow up without parents. The weight of all those lives pressed down on Santos like a mountain. He stood slowly and turned to find Lisa Cho waiting nearby. She was the military governor of Valorian territory now, responsible for keeping order in a conquered empire. It was strange work for someone who had once been a diplomat's aide. But the war had changed everyone. The prisoner is ready, Mr. President, she said. Santos nodded. Bring him. Guards brought High Counselor Draven into the ruined hall. The alien who had once ruled the galaxy now wore chains and torn clothing. His gray skin was pale, and his black eyes were empty. He had aged greatly in 3 months. The proud leader who had ordered David Park's death looked broken and old. Leave us, Santos said to the guards. They hesitated, then obeyed. Santos and Draven stood alone in the place where everything had begun. Do you remember this spot? Santos asked quietly. Draven looked at the stone marker on the floor. This is where your ambassador died. Where you murdered him, Santos corrected. He came in peace. He spoke of friendship. And you killed him because you were afraid. Draven's voice was bitter. We were right to be afraid. Look what you have done. Look at the destruction your species has caused. We were trying to protect the galaxy from monsters like you. Santos shook his head sadly. You were trying to protect your own power. You saw humanity rising, and you could not accept that one day we might be your equals. So you decided to destroy us while you still could. He walked closer to Draven. But here is the truth. High Counselor. If you had simply left us alone, none of this would have happened. We did not want war. We did not want conquest. We wanted what every species wants. A place among the stars, a chance to grow and thrive. Friends, not enemies. Then why did you build those hidden fleets? Draven demanded. Why did you prepare for war if you wanted peace? Because we know our history, Santos replied. Humanity has been nearly destroyed many times. By disease. By war. By our own foolishness. We learned that hope is not enough. We learned that the weak are always in danger. So we prepared for the worst while hoping for the best. He looked directly into Draven's eyes. You made our worst fear come true. You proved that the galaxy would never accept us peacefully. You left us no choice but to fight. Every death in this war, on both sides, is on your hands. Draven's composure finally broke. His voice cracked with emotion. What will you do with me? Execute me? Make me a symbol of your victory? Santos was quiet for a long moment. No, he said finally. I will not kill you. That would be too easy. Instead, you will live. You will watch as humanity builds a new order on the ruins of your empire. You will see the species you once ruled learn to work with us as equals. You will spend the rest of your very long life knowing that everything you built has been replaced by something better. He turned away. That is your punishment, High Counselor, not death. Memory. You will remember what you did and what it cost for the rest of your existence. Guards took Draven away to a prison ship. He would be held on a distant world. Comfortable, but alone, until he died of old age. Some said it was too merciful. Santos believed it was the worst punishment possible for someone who had valued power above all else. Later that day, Santos met with Ambassador Grace Kim. She was a young woman, only 40 years old. But she had the wisdom of someone much older. Her job was to build something new, from the ashes of the council. A new government where all species would be treated as equals. A new order where no one would have to fear being conquered simply for being different. The smaller species are willing to join us, Grace reported. The Valorians and their allies oppressed them for centuries. They see us as liberators, not conquerors. And the Valorians themselves? They are angry and humiliated, but they know they cannot fight us. In time, they will accept the new reality. Especially if we treat them fairly. Santos nodded. That is exactly what we will do. We did not fight this war to become what the Council was. We fought to create something better. Make sure everyone understands that. We offer partnership, not domination. Equality, not submission. What about justice for Ambassador Park? Grace asked. We will build a memorial here. In this hall, Santos said. His name will be remembered forever. And every species that joins our new order will know his story. They will know that humanity will extend friendship to anyone who seeks it, but they will also know what happens to those who choose violence instead. That evening, Kevin Park came to the ruined hall alone. He carried a small box in his hands. Inside was his brother's diplomatic medal, the one David had worn on the day he died. Kevin walked to the stone marker and knelt. He dug a small hole in the broken floor and placed the medal inside. Then he covered it with dust and stood. You would hate what we did, he said quietly to his brother's memory. You always believed in peace. You thought anyone could be convinced to do the right thing if you just talked to them long enough. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. Maybe you were right. Maybe there was another way. But they did not give us a chance to find it. They killed you, David. They killed you while you were trying to save them from themselves, and I cannot forgive that. I will never forgive that. He looked up at the broken ceiling, where stars were visible through the holes. But I promise you this. We will build something good from this. We will make a galaxy where ambassadors are not murdered, where species can live in peace, where your dream can finally come true. That is how we will honor you. Not with revenge, with hope. He stood for a long time in the darkness, alone with his memories. Then he walked away. leaving his brother's medal buried in the place where everything had changed. The war was over. The real work was about to begin. 5 years had passed since the war. The galaxy was a different place now. Where the Council Citadel had once stood broken and burned, a new building rose toward the stars. It was called the Hall of Unity, and it was the seat of a new government called the Galactic Compact. Inside, representatives from 100 species gathered to discuss laws, trade, and the future. Humans sat beside aliens who had once called them primitives. Former enemies worked together to build something that had never existed before. At the center of the hall stood a statue of David Park. It showed him as he had been in life, tall, calm, with kind eyes, and an outstretched hand. Below the statue, words were carved in every language the galaxy knew. He came in peace. His death brought war. His memory brings unity. President Michael Santos stood before this statue for the last time. He was 75 years old now, and his time as leader was ending. Tomorrow, a new president would take his place. But today, he had one final duty. The hall was filled with people, human and alien alike. They had come to hear his last address. Cameras broadcast his words to every world in the compact, to billions of beings who had learned to live together in the shadow of a terrible war. 5 years ago, Santos began, I stood in the ruins of the old council and promised that we would build something better. Today, I can say that we have kept that promise. He looked out at the crowd. Among them were faces he knew. Admiral Hannah Lee, now Supreme Commander of the Galactic Defense Force. Governor Lisa Cho, who had guided the former Council territories through the difficult transition. Ambassador Grace Kim, who had written the laws of the Compact. And Kevin Park, now retired from military service, who served as curator of the Memorial of Unity. We did not want this war, Santos continued. We did not seek this power. We asked only for a place among the stars, a chance to grow and learn and contribute. When that chance was denied, when our ambassador was murdered for the crime of hoping for peace, we responded as humans always have when threatened. We fought back. His voice grew softer, but we did not fight to conquer. We fought to survive. And when the war was won, we made a choice. We could have become what the Council was, ruling through fear and force. Instead, we offered something the Council never offered us: equality, partnership, a future built together. He gestured to the aliens in the audience. The species gathered here today were once our enemies. Some fought against us, some tried to destroy us. But we invited them to join us anyway, because we understood something the Council never did. Strength is not measured by how many you can defeat. It is measured by how many you can lift up. Santos looked up at the statue of David Park. Ambassador Park knew this truth. He died trying to share it with a galaxy that was not ready to listen. But now, 5 years later, his dream has come true. Not the way he imagined, not without terrible cost. But his vision of a galaxy where all species work together as equals is no longer a dream. It is reality. He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was firm. But let no one misunderstand. The lesson of the war has not been forgotten. Humanity will extend friendship to all who seek it. We will welcome any species who wishes to join us. We will treat every being with respect and dignity, but those who choose violence against us will face the same fate as the Council. This is not a threat. It is a promise. We will never again allow anyone to think that humans are easy prey. The crowd applauded, humans and aliens together. It was a strange sight. Species that had once tried to destroy each other now united under the banner of the Compact. But it was also a beautiful sight, proof that even the worst enemies could become friends if given the chance. After the ceremony, Kevin Park walked through the gardens outside the Hall of Unity. He was in his 50s now, with gray in his hair and lines on his face. The angry young pilot who had fought to avenge his brother was gone. In his place was a quieter man. One who had learned that peace was harder than war but more valuable. A small group of alien children followed him through the garden. They were students from one of the new schools that taught humans and aliens together. Kevin often led tours for these groups, telling them about the history of the Compact and the man whose statue stood at its heart. One of the children, a young alien girl with blue skin and large eyes, tugged at Kevin's sleeve. "Elder Park," she said, "why did the council kill your brother? Did they not know it would start a war?" Kevin knelt to look at her directly. "They did not believe humans would fight back," he said. "They thought we were weak. They thought they could hurt us without consequences. Were they wrong?" Kevin smiled sadly. "They were very wrong. But it was a mistake that cost billions of lives. The council was afraid of us because we were different. Because we grew fast and dreamed big. They thought the only way to be safe was to destroy us before we became too strong." He stood and looked up at the sky, where human and alien ships moved among the stars. The lesson they learned too late was that fear is a poor reason for war. If they had simply talked to us, treated us as equals, my brother would still be alive. The council would still exist, and the galaxy would have been spared so much pain. The girl thought about this for a moment. "So we should not be afraid of species that are different from us?" "No," Kevin said. "We should try to understand them. We should offer them friendship. And if they refuse, if they choose to be our enemies, then we should be ready to defend ourselves. But we should never start a war simply because someone is different or because we fear what they might become." The children returned to their teachers, and Kevin walked alone to a quiet corner of the garden. There was a small stone there, identical to the one in the ruined hall on Cora Prime. It marked the place where Kevin had buried a copy of his brother's diplomatic medal. He placed fresh flowers at the base of the stone and stood in silence. Lisa Cho found him there an hour later. She was old now too, with white hair and a face marked by years of hard work. But her eyes were still sharp, and her mind was still quick. "I thought I would find you here," she said. Kevin nodded. "I come every year on this day. The anniversary of his death." "I know. I do the same." Lisa stood beside him and looked at the stone. "Do you think he would be proud of what we have built?" Kevin considered the question carefully. "I think he would be sad about the war, about all the lives lost, but I think he would be happy that his dream came true, even if it happened in a way he never expected." "The new ambassadors graduate tomorrow," Lisa said. "I have been training them for 3 years. They are good, smart, patient, dedicated to peace. I teach them David's philosophy." "What philosophy is that?" Lisa smiled. "Always offer peace first. But never forget what happens to those who refuse it." Kevin laughed softly. "David would not have said it that way." "No," Lisa agreed. "But David did not live to see what we saw. He believed in the goodness of others, until the moment they killed him. We learned a harder lesson. Peace must be offered with one hand and defended with the other." They stood together in the garden as the sun set over the Hall of Unity. The statue of David Park was visible in the distance, his hand still reaching out in eternal friendship. Far above, human ships patrolled the space lanes, keeping the peace they had won through blood and fire. On 1,000 worlds, humans and aliens worked side by side, building homes, raising families, dreaming of futures their ancestors could never have imagined. The old council was gone. The new compact stood in its place. And, at the heart of it all, remembered forever, was a man who had believed in peace so strongly that his death had shaken the galaxy to its core. Kevin Park looked up at the stars one last time. "Rest well, brother," he whispered. "Your work is done. And it was worth it. Every moment of it was worth it." The night fell over the garden, but the lights of the Hall of Unity burned bright against the darkness. A new era had begun. And humanity, once scorned as primitives, now stood at its center, not as conquerors, not as tyrants, but as leaders, teachers, and friends. The galaxy had learned its lesson, and it would never forget.